interrupting me. You better do whatever you can do so that we can interact and learn together. If you have a contribution, by all means. If you have a question, by all means, please do so. And so I don't want you to be obsessed with taking down notes and rushing. The material is there for you. You will get the material. And so just a bit of a recap from the last module on leadership that we did from the last course. Reverend Roy touched on a few things. And the first thing he touched on is sort of defining servant leadership in a particular way. He mentioned that servant leadership is also a control mechanism against enterprising the gospel. And he emphasized that servant leadership operates 4 cardinal points. That is God, ministers, the believers, and the ministry. And the purpose of servant leadership, he went on to say, it is to plant the right motives within the Christian leader. And so the Christian leader's motives must be purified so that they can serve with purity of heart, and to stop leaders from building personal empires, or rather forming personality cults in the work of God. And so the emphasis on that course was that we are only stewards. We are not owners of the church. We are not owners of the work, but we have been entrusted by God to steward this particular work. I'm not sure if there's anyone with any other recap. If you've got any other recap, you can just paste it on the message board, or we can actually interact. You can just raise your hand. We can also do a recap. And so that's just a bit of what we touched on in the last module. In this particular module, now this is called the laws of servant leadership. The laws of servant leadership. And we are going to touch on five laws of servant leadership. 5 laws of servant leadership. And I'm going just to remind you that we have all the material for you. Now, there are various types of leaderships that we have in the secular setting and even in the church setting. There are all sorts of types that we have: transformational leadership, we have autocratic leadership, we have strategic leadership, bureaucratic leadership, democratic leadership. There are various types of leadership that we find in the secular setting and even in the kingdom setting as well. But most leadership styles in the secular setting, they center on the leader's use of power, leader's use of strategy, leader's use of authority to influence people towards a particular goal. And so if you're acquainted with leadership styles in the secular setting, this is what they generally tend to focus on. They focus on the leader's sort of power to wield authority, or to use authority, or to use strategies, to use some sort of power to influence people, whether to manipulate or just to turn people towards a particular shared goal or just a common vision. But slowly now, if you are acquainted with leadership studies, very slowly we are now moving towards a transformational leadership style, rather than a dictatorial or autocratic, where people just dictate things to you, or where people use simply authority, where people want to stamp their authority, where people have to remind you that, excuse me, I'm the chairperson here. And then they use that in order to bring about the sort of results that they desire. But we have been noticing sort of from the 2000s coming onwards, another dimension of transformational leadership. And this is where we place servant leadership. Servant leadership belongs to a category of leadership that is called transformational leadership. And so we just want to place servant leadership within the whole spectrum, the whole sort of subject of leadership. And so we can identify servant leadership within the trajectory, within the subtopic of transformational leadership. And this is a recent phenomenon. This is not something that was always there. And so even in the secular setting, you're going to realize that many organizations, they are adopting the servant leadership style because it has been proven to work. And this is a kingdom model. This is a kingdom model. Now, we are in a world that is burdened and wearied with all sorts of strange kinds of leadership styles. People have strange ways of arm twisting people to achieve goals, of people have all sorts of psychological or manipulative tactics to achieve things. Even politically, we are in a capitalistic society. We are in a hierarchical society. We are in a class society. And so servant leadership sort of is revolutionary. And we are going to see how revolutionary this is. And we are going to see how Jesus himself is sort of the founding personality of servant leadership. And so our model is purely.
Can everybody mute themselves, please? We don't want any interruptions. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Thank you. And so servant leadership is an approach to leadership that is prioritizing the master, which we shall see. The master can be a particular mission, the master can be particular people, but servant leadership is an approach to leadership that is prioritizing the mission or the master or the follower, whatever that is, as we shall explore further down. And so now, Mark chapter 10, verse 43 to 44. Mark chapter 10, verse 43 to 44. If someone has it, please just paste on the message board. Mark chapter 10, verse 43 to 44. Jesus here is addressing a particular situation. Mark 10, 43 to 44. Not so with you, instead, whoever wants to be great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. And there's a tagline that I want you to remember throughout this session. And the tagline is, leaders serve and servants lead. You can type that on the board as well. Leaders serve and servants lead. Leaders serve and servants, they lead. And so Jesus is saying, whoever wants to be great among you must be your servant. You must be the servant. And whoever wants to be first must be the slave of all. Now, Jesus is saying this within a context of a society that is very, how can we describe this? This is a society with an emperor at the top, with a slave at the very bottom. And so this does not make much sense to the disciples as they are hearing this. The context of this text, when Jesus is saying this, this is absolutely revolutionary. Because how can a slave be the great one? How can the servant be the leader? How can you lead and serve at the same time? How is serving leading? So if you are a servant, how can you be the leader at exactly the same time, in exactly the same moment? How is this possible? And this is exactly what we want to look at. How can you be a servant and a leader at the same time? And this is the predicament of the disciples. This is the trouble that we are finding in this particular model, because it seems that this is self-contradicting itself. It seems there's a self-contradiction, that you are being asked If you want to be the top, if you want to be great, you are being asked to be a slave. If you want to be the leader, you are being asked to serve. And so Jesus is saying this to the hearers. This is absolutely unthinkable. This is revolutionary. How can this be? But we shall explore this much further. So before we dive into this, then, just a bit of definitions. Servant leadership, servant leadership. I want to borrow from the word that the Apostle Paul uses when he's writing the epistles. He always introduces himself as a bond servant. I am a servant of the Lord Jesus Christ. I am a bond servant. And the word he's using there continuously is the word doulos in the Greek. Now, the word doulos in the Greek, don't worry about the spelling and everything, we've got it in the material. This word simply means a slave, a bondman, someone who is bonded to somebody. You are devoted to another, to the disregard of your own interest. This is a servant. You are attached to another with complete disregard to your own personal interest. You have given yourself up to another's will in service. This is what the Apostle Paul means when he says, I am a servant of the Lord Jesus Christ. I am a bond servant. Now, leadership is simply an act of influencing yourself or influencing others, a group of people, toward a common goal. This is leadership. And so we want to bring these two terms together, servant and leadership. So keep in mind those two definitions. And the first question we want to explore is, if I am a servant leader, servant leadership assumes that I am bonded to something, or I am bonded to someone, or there is a master above me. It assumes that. And the first thing we want to clarify is, who is our master? If I am a servant, who am I serving? What is it that I'm serving? Who am I serving? Now, there are three dimensions to this, but we are going just to look at the one of them. Yes, we are serving God. Yes, we are serving others. But for now, it's important for us to focus on the mission. So you are serving the mission. If you are a servant leader, your obsession is the mission. Your obsession is the mission that God or someone in authority has entrusted upon you. That is what you are a servant to. True servant leadership starts at this point. When you humble yourself, when you submit yourself under a particular mission that God has entrusted to you or somebody has entrusted to you. This is the beginning of true servant leadership. This is the beginning of true servant leadership. And so a servant leader is somebody who is serving the mission, no matter what the mission is. You have submitted yourself under a particular mission. You have submitted yourself under someone who has the mission. And so the mission has been entrusted to you. And so servant leadership, this is the starting point. This is the starting point. This is the starting point. And so the mission is very, very important in servant leadership, because if there's no mission, there can be no servant leadership. There is no even motivation to do anything. You must be captured by the mission first, and then you submit yourself under the mission, and then you proceed. Now, the end goal of the mission is what we call normally the vision. The vision is the end picture of the goal. That is what we call the vision. The mission is the way to get to the vision. The vision is the the mental picture. It is the end result. It is the end result. And so, first of all, be captured by the mission. You must be convicted by that mission. You must be convicted by that mission. Otherwise, there's no motivation to lead. We can't talk of any leadership when there is no mission. When there is no mission. And so, you must be very clear what is the mission that God has entrusted upon your life. And how do you know that you know your mission? Just type on the message board, God called me to, and complete that sentence. What is it that God has called you to? What mission has been entrusted to your care or to the authority that God has given upon your life? What mission do you have? And so servant leadership starts when you're convicted of that mission, you know the end result of that mission, and you submit yourself under that mission. Now, servant leadership is not just for the ministry. Of course, we are focusing on the ministry, but this is also for the home and the marketplace. You are a servant leader in your own home. As a father, as a mother, as a husband, as a wife, even in the workplace, you are a servant leader. And so the starting point, I have to hammer through this point of servant leadership, is submission to a mission. There must be a mission, and you must submit yourself under that mission. You will never become a servant leader until you first become a servant to the mission. A servant to the mission. And we are going to go to Jesus Christ very, very quickly now. So for Christ, who is our model tonight, Christ is the center and our model for the laws of servant leadership that we are going to touch on. Christ himself, he was never self-serving. No, he was not self-serving. He was not self-serving. Many, many times, we cannot finish the scriptures that to prove this, but he says, I have come down from heaven, not to do my own will, not to serve my own interest, but to do the will of him that has sent me, to do the will of my Father. John chapter 6, verse 38. Jesus has come to do the will of my Father. He has come to serve. He has come with the spirit of servanthood. Under the spirit of servanthood, he has come to demonstrate servant leadership in its purest form. You remember when he went into the house of Zacchaeus, the tax collector, and people were sort of not amused by that. And he said, for the Son of Man came to seek and save that which was lost. He's articulating his mission. He's articulating his mission. At another point, Luke chapter number 4, he articulates his mission again. I have come, as it was written in the book of Isaiah chapter number 61, he has come to proclaim the good news. He has come to set the captives free. And so he articulates his mission. There is a mission that he's under, and that mission is from the Father. That mission is from the Father. Luke chapter 19, verse 10, Mark chapter 10, verse 45, John chapter 6, verse 38. Jesus is repeating the same thing to the point where he says that everything that I do, everything that I'm doing, I'm only doing it because I see my Father doing it. I have heard it from my Father. So he has gotten to such a level of submission to the mission that everything that he's doing is tapping it from the Father, because he is serving. He is serving. And so this is the starting point of all servant leadership. And so we have submitted ourselves under a particular mission. There is a mission that has been communicated to us by God or to an authority of God in our lives, and we submit ourselves under that mission. And so you are a servant leader in your own right, and there is a mission that you are about, and you have submitted yourself under that mission, and you are a servant leader. That is the starting point of servant leadership. I don't know if there's anyone with an addition, a contribution, a question to add before we start on the laws of servant leadership. Before we start on the laws.
Give me your pen.
Anyone with a contribution or perhaps a question or a point of clarity? I know I've got other teachers as well on this call, so they are going to be beefing up and complementing all this material. So if there's any additions to make, any contributions or any questions, please do feel free.
Yeah, I think we started on a very good note, like the explanation of for there to be a servant, there must be a mission which you submit to. And that one really, I feel is very powerful, because when you are submitting to the mission, you don't feel compelled like you are submitting to the pastor or to anyone else. You know that you want to see this vision move. So I think that gives more motivation and more energy, and you are not concerned about what other people are doing. You are focusing on seeing this vision being pushed forward. So for me, I really liked that one, and it's really powerful. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Prophetess.
Yeah.
Thank you. So it really takes us away from. Oh, somebody wants to say something?
Yes, and maybe to just add on to the kind of motivation that is there is not external, it's within you.
Yeah.
Because you have submitted yourself. You've not been submitted by somebody else. And so it is because you feel you have embraced it. And so you want to move and make sure that you succeed. And so your goal is to get to the vision itself. And so in order for you to achieve it, it is now moving in the mission. And so I think we can take maybe the analogy of a road where you are walking towards your destination. And so the vision is the destination, and the mission is the road that you walk in order to get to your vision. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. That is really, really on it, because it divorces us from building personality cults and attaching to people. We are living in a world of the celebrity cult, in a world of stars, of, and so sometimes when we are attached to people and not mission, when people play up, we get so affected and perhaps we lose our way. But the mission remains in spite of what the person might do. And so it actually safeguards us and safeguards our heart and our motive. Rather than be attached to personalities, we attach ourselves to the mission.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Wow. So in terms of ministry, I have seen examples of whereby people probably they are serving in the same ministry or serving in the same ministry or same department. And if you have caught the vision, you are not, even if you started together, you are not concerned whether the other one has dropped, dropped off or decided to change their mind and go somewhere else. If you caught it, you will stick to it and you will run with it, because then it kind of weighs our hearts as well, our intentions to the mission. Are you there for people, or are you there because you have actually got the vision, you've got the mission? Yeah.
That's really powerful, because when we get to turbulent times, it is probably then that our motives get exposed and also our motives get purified. Because when we go through the furnace of trying times, whether in our mission, whatever mission that is, in our group, in our circle, in our ministry, when you go through turbulent times, it is through those times that, oh yeah, somebody wants to say something. Yeah, we can hear you. Oh, did somebody want to say something?
No, just carry on.
Okay. Yeah, so purity of motives. Purity of motives, very, very important when it comes to servant leadership. The Lord wants our motives to be purified. Now we want to go on to the 5 laws of servant leadership. 5 laws of servant leadership. Law number 1. This is the law of humility. The law of humility. The law of humility. This is Luke chapter 14, verse 7 to 11. And this is a story, a common story. A man goes to the banquet. Jesus is saying that when you go to the banquet, when you arrive, do not go straight to the high table. Place yourself right at the back. And when the host, when the owners of the banquet actually come, they can then say to you, well, you can go to the high table. And he says it will actually save you the embarrassment, because if you rush to the high table, the owners come and you actually be removed from the seat because there's somebody who is more important than you who has arrived. And so when you arrive, place yourself at the very back. Place yourself at the very back. Servant leaders trust that the host will choose those he wants to the high table. And so a servant leader has not come here for the high table. A servant leader has not come here for recognition. A servant leader has come here for service. And so a servant leader humbles themselves to the mission that has been entrusted upon them. And it is God that exalts them. It is not man that exalts them. It is God that rewards them. It is not man that rewards them. And so the focus is on God rewarding, who is the owner of the work, who is the owner of the mission. And so the recognition comes from God. I know we are in a day where praises, a lot of praises, a lot of honor, a lot of recognition. And naturally, human nature craves recognition, craves validation from people. But a servant leader must be purified to such a point that their validation in their recognition, they value validation and recognition from God and not from people. And that will save them from a lot of bitterness. That is why some that serve are the most bitter of all. People that serve a lot, some of them are the most bitter. Why? Because they don't feel recognized. They don't feel appreciated. They don't feel that they have been seen. Of course, they must be appreciated and recognized, but recognition in terms of ultimate and final recognition comes from God, not from men. And so the first law, take your way to the back. And again, we mentioned that there is sort of like a tension in this term, servant leadership. This is sort of a downward path to greatness, which again is a self-contradiction, because Jesus is saying the path to greatness is downward, not upward. If you humble yourself, he's going to lift you up. It seems he has an affinity. He cannot resist humility. If somebody humbles themselves, God gives grace to the humble. He gives power to the humble. And so if I humble myself before him, God then lifts me up. But if I lift myself up, there might be shame and embarrassment coming for me. And so Jesus lived the humility that he taught. He's not just talking about humility. He's not just saying, oh, I've come to serve, and he did not live it. Jesus himself lived this humility. Philippians chapter 2, verse 3 to 4. Philippians chapter 2, verse 3 to 4. This is the height of humility. For Christ to empty himself and come and be a human being, that is an act of humility that is probably unmatched. To put on flesh, to live the heights of glory and to put on flesh. And so the first law is the law of humility. The first law is the law of humility. Does anyone have any question or anything to add on the law of humility? Anyone to add or anything to say or a question on the law of humility? Now, the second law is the law of following. Of following. This is very, very key. This is very, very key. Mark chapter 10, verse 32 down through verse 38, 39. This is the law of following. Jesus is talking about the kingdom, and James and John, they come with a very special request. They say, when we come into glory, can John sit on the right and James on the left? Now, this is power now, this is position. So, and their mom was in support, in pleading for the cause of these positions of authority. That, oh, can this one sit on your left and on your right when you come into the glory of your kingdom? Now, we might rush to condemn these two disciples, but within each of us is a natural tendency to be in a lofty position. There's this natural inclination to be in authority. There's this natural inclination to be associated with power and with influence, with authority, to be well positioned for influence. It is a natural inclination within each and every one of us that I want to be in a position of authority. I want to be in a position of power. And James and John come and they say, well, one of us should be on your left and one of us should be on your right. And again, the disciples did not take this very lightly. They didn't like this particular assertion. They didn't like this particular proposition that who are you? Why do you want to sit on the master's right and on the left? And so already arguments have broken out within the camp, within the ministry. And these are power struggles. These are power dynamics. And we see this every day, not just in the ministry, but in our homes, in the workplace. We see these power struggles coming into play. But Jesus gets this opportunity to actually teach servant leadership. He takes it as an opportunity to say servant leaders, they follow the mission rather than seek a position. Servant leaders are not obsessed about the position. Their obsession is the mission. And so they are following Christ. They are not following a position. And so leaders both lead and follow. And so Jesus is overturning this whole concept that leaders, they just lead. No, leaders also follow. Leaders also follow. They don't just lead, but they follow. And following becomes part of servant leadership. And so this is very, very key. This is very, very key. And you as a servant leader, there are things that attract following, and there are things that repel following. And we are not going to go into the character traits of servant leadership for the sake of this module and for the sake of our time. But a leader, a servant leader must follow. Following is at the very core of servant leadership. The word disciple itself means a learner, a follower. That is why some more literal, more contemporary versions, the disciples are called the followers of Christ. The followers of Christ. You are tracking. You are tracking in his steps. You are following in his steps. And that is a servant leader. That is a servant leader. I know we are in a day of ambition. Ambition has taken over. And so people are so ambitious. Nobody wants to follow anybody, but people want to be followed. But as a servant leader, make it your point that the thing that you are going to follow is the mission. It is the Christocentric mission. You are going to be a follower. And do not worry about looking left, right, center, or who's following me, But be a follower. Be a follower. Be a follower. Be a follower. Becoming a servant to the mission means that you are a follower, even of the people who God has put as authorities over that particular mission. And the people that God has entrusted over that particular mission, you are a follower. Very simply, when Jesus called the disciples, he did not preach a long sermon. He just says, follow me. Follow me. Peter, Andrew, James, John became servant leaders. Immediately, he just said, follow me. They dropped their nets and they followed it. And so it might look simple, but in the context of our day, this is a hard thing to do, to follow as a leader and to qualify ourselves as servant leaders, to follow, to submit under a mission of the people that God has entrusted, to submit under the mission that we are involved in. And so this is the law of following. Now, some reflection questions I want to hear from you. Would you consider yourself a follower? Would you consider yourself more of a follower or more of a leader? When you arrive at a scenario, do you consider yourself more of you want people to follow you or more of you are following? What would you consider yourself to be? Have you been accused of any ulterior agenda? Like, have you ever been accused of having an agenda within a particular setting which had already a mission, and perhaps you're accused of bringing in another mission? You want people to follow you. These are all questions just for your personal reflections, and I want to hear some of your responses. Yeah. What do you consider yourself to be more like?
Can I just check if people are able to write in the chat?
Yes, please.
No, it's just direct to you, prophetess. So we can't write it for everyone to see. It's just saying we can just write it to you.
To me,
Yeah. It's just saying direct messages to yourself.
all right, okay, let me click on the settings. Why? Okay, try to send again.
Now it says you can send to everyone.
Yeah, try to send. I'm in the settings.
In what ways are you like James and John? Probably. They sincerely desired positions of, those elite positions. In what ways do you think you are a position seeker? This is just a reflection. In what ways do you feel like you are more authoritative? You are more the leader type and not the follower type. You're not very good at following, or you're not very good at leading. Where do you place yourself? Let's hear. Or just as a discussion point, what do you think?
I would love to think that I'm a follower. That's what I would love to think, because where I think where there is a vision that is clear, and for me in particular, it's anything to do with the gospel of Christ. That's my heartbeat. So if it's clear where I am, I become attached to that. I would give an example of Kemif, not because I'm here, but since I started, I've not sort of backed down, despite the fact that I actually am from another, should I say, fellowship, but I've been with Kemif for nearly 2 years now. But it's the clear vision, the mission, and I can see where it's going, and it's captured. So I'm more into it. I'm more into the mission because of what it produces and what I'm seeing, really. Lives being changed and lives being transformed through Jesus Christ. So I would love to think that's what pulls me.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much. So you are sort of attached to the mission. You are bonded to the mission. And you're convicted of the mission. You're absolutely convinced because you've spoken of results, actually. You have seen that, oh, you know what, this is actually working. There is a transformative aspect here.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
You've arrived at the place of conviction, and because of that, it motivates you to move. It motivates you to do stuff. It motivates you to propagate the vision, to propagate the mission that you're under. And so, thank you for that. And so submitting under a particular mission becomes quite key, and actually running with that particular mission.
Amen. Amen.
Anyone wants to add anything else?
Just checking again, can people type things or still coming to me? If it's coming to me, you can still type. I can read it out. I think it's
okay.
Yeah,
It's absolutely fine. Yeah, so you can still type and we can hear them through as well. We want to move on to law number 3. Law number 3. This is the laws of servant leadership. And this is the law of servanthood. This is the law of servanthood. Slightly different. These laws might appear the same, but they are slightly different. Mark chapter 10, verse 45 again. And we also are touching on Matthew chapter number 20, verse 26, 27. Same settings here. Servant leaders, they give up their personal rights to find greatness in service to the mission. So you give up your personal interests. You leave your personal interests. I'm telling you, there are people that have left careers. There are people whose lives have been diverted. There are people whose lives have been not intervened, but even interrupted They have sacrificed certain things. They have laid aside their personal privileges, their personal rights. They have left aside a lot of things in pursuit of the mission that God has given them. And that is the spirit of seven, where sacrificially, God has given you a mission. God has given you a mission, or you have submitted yourself under a mission. And you give up. You give up. Remember the definition of seven that we spoke about at the beginning. You give up. You do not regard anymore your personal rights. You do not regard anymore your personal privileges, your own personal will. Jesus himself got to this intersection where he said, not my will, but your will be done. The Apostle Paul himself said, I count everything but dung. Here is a man who had a massive CV, very big CV, but he said, now, compared to the mission that I'm under, all that is just but dung. That is the spirit of servanthood. That is the spirit of servanthood. I'm now serving this mission. I have left this. The disciples at one point, Jesus preached in the book of John, I believe, chapter number 6. He preached a very hard sermon. And the Bible says, and many people left him. Jesus discerned within the multitude after the miracle of bread. And Jesus said, these people are following me because of the miracle. They are not following me because they are following me. No, they are following the miracle. These people are seeking to meet their personal needs. These people are seeking deliverance. They are not seeking me. They are seeking me because of the bread that I gave them. And he then went on to say, unless you eat of my flesh and drink of my blood, you are not part of me. And the Bible says, and many left him. And Jesus went on even to his disciples and says, and looked at them and says, what about you? You can leave also. That was a moment of purification, because the disciples then says, Lord, we have left everything.
And to follow you.
We have left everything to follow you. We look at Elisha. Elisha is hit with a mantle by Elijah. And he bent his 12 yoke of oxen and he's following.
Yeah.
Now, even if he would have thought of going back, there is nowhere to go back to.
Mm.
He is so consumed now with the mission. There is, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die in this mission. All right. If I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail in this mission. I'm planted, I'm rooted. If I'm going to fail, this will be my place of failure. If I'm going to die, this will be my place of death. And so these guys are so sold out to the mission that there's no plan B.
Yeah.
There's nowhere to fall back on, even if we wanted to. If we fall back, we are falling back on the same mission, and we are going to get up and carry on. That's how it's going to be. And so servant leaders, they give up their own personal interests, their own personal rights. They are consumed. This is the spirit of servanthood. This is the spirit of servanthood. And so this is sacrificial. This is sacrificial. The Apostle Paul, I've spoken about the Apostle Paul. He left a lot in pursuit of the mission that God entrusted to him. And so in the scenario that we are carrying on, Jesus corrects the thinking of James and John. He corrects that thinking. And he corrects even the thinking of the other arguing disciples as well. And so the law of servanthood is key, because if someone does not have the spirit of servanthood, they are going to be caught betwixt two. They are not going to be fully committed. And one of the most dangerous leaders are leaders that are not fully committed. They have one leg in, they have one leg out.
Yeah.
They have a backup plan. They're just trying out this thing. Let's see. Let's see how this thing will go. And then perhaps a bit later on, I can fully commit. Let's see. And so there's this half-hearted approach to leadership. Why? Because the spirit of servanthood is not yet present within this particular person. Whoever wants to be great must be your servant. Whoever wants to be first must be your slave. This is the principle of Christ. The spirit of servanthood. You must be willing to serve. Not just to serve, but at the expense of yourself and your own personal will. Somebody said, if there's clarity in the vision, it becomes easy to follow. If there's clarity in the vision, it becomes easy to follow. And that takes us back to the beginning of servant leadership, where we spoke about the mission. If the mission is not clear, we cannot even talk about servant leadership because you have nowhere to go. You're going nowhere, and you're going nowhere very quickly. And so if there's no clarity in the mission, you have nothing to pursue, you have nothing to motivate you. There's no motivation, there's no pursuit. You're going nowhere because there is no clarity in the particular mission. And so as a servant leader yourself, you have to make sure that you have clarified the mission to your group, to your circle. You have clarified the mission in no uncertain terms, that you become truthful. Jesus himself clarified the mission. And by clarifying the mission, he got rid of people who were not part of the mission. Because Jesus started to say some very strange things about his mission, which if really you are half-hearted, you will think twice. Because he said it himself that I have come to die. That's what I've come to do. I'm going to die. He told his disciples, and this is a powerful principle for the servant leader. You have to be truthful. You have to be very real that, ladies and gentlemen, this is the situation. The real situation. And Jesus did not shy away. And there was so much clarity in that mission. And there was so much clarity in that vision. And so thank you so much for that contribution. And so we want to move on. And so this paradox continually confused the disciples, because this is a paradoxical sort of style of leadership. Because at one point you are a servant and then you are a leader again. You are meek and yet you're in control. You have no formal education, but you are teaching with great authority. So there is a tension within this style of leadership. Now, it doesn't mean you are weak. No. You are a follower, but you possess boldness at the same time. You are a bold individual. You possess initiative at the same time. And so servant leadership is not about being weak. It's not about being low self-esteem. It's not about being all these negative aspects. No. Jesus himself, the man who is talking about humility, at one point he whipped people out of the temple. Now, servant leadership is about discerning the moment and doing what's required for the moment. And so that is why we see this paradoxical style of leadership within Christ. Gentle as a lamb, but yet courageous as a lion. This is one person. You are gentle as a lamb. This is your character. But a situation will arise where the lion in you must roar. You are yielding, yet you are aggressive when you are cornered by some sort of unholy injustice. And so, servant leadership, this is a tag of a paradox that we are dealing with. And it is the Spirit of God that will help you to discern the moment so that you are not acting randomly or in an erratic way. And so this is the image of leadership that Jesus himself is portraying. Anyone with anything to add before we move on to the next law? Anyone with anything to add, or anyone with something?
I just want to add on, the law of following, something that strikes me on the law of following, that, leaders must also be followers. Nowadays, we have a lot of leaders who cannot follow, even Christ himself, who cannot follow anybody, which has put the church at a very vulnerable, especially the sheep, the people who are following such leaders in a very vulnerable position, because where a leader cannot follow, that means such leaders, they usually are not accountable. So there's not, we see that they are outside any safeguarding, any protectiveness to protect those that they are leading. They become, they say it, or whatever they say goes. Nobody can question. There is no higher authority to put them in order if they are not doing things right. Which is something that I feel, I always say, every pastor needs a pastor.
Oh, yes.
Even if you are a pastor, who is your pastor? Who is your leader? Who are you answerable to?
Accountable to.
Yeah, who are you answerable? This is why you find that in the traditional churches, there is more discipline. Things are not just done anyhow. Even if you are a bishop, there is an archbishop above you who can call you to order. So I think that the law of following is very important, and even in small churches or ministries that are just starting, when you find yourself surrounded with people who have got gifts but they don't have the gift of following, that can be very, very challenging. Yes, they have leadership qualities, but if you have leadership qualities but you cannot follow, then that's a weakness.
Thank you so much, Prophetess. Thank you.
If I could also just add on to servanthood. I'm very much challenged by my own lead pastor. I mean, he has epitomized servanthood. He has left the creature comforts of his birth nation to come into my nation for the mission that he was sent by God to achieve. And constantly, I really get challenged. I think, well, in my nation, there's no running water. And when I think about him and back home, everything works. And he has left all those creature comforts so that he follows that which God has sent him to do, which is to preach the gospel to the people of Africa. And that is constantly challenging me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is really powerful and that is really commendable. Such kind of inspiration. And thank you, Prophetess, for bringing in the issue of accountability, the accountable. The servant leader is an accountable leader. So the servant leader must always be conscious that they are not a law unto themselves.
Unto themselves.
They cannot be a law unto themselves. They should always, always, always remember that they are accountable, not only to those that are above them, but even to those that are below them. Because it's servant leadership, not only are we accountable to those on top, we are accountable even to those at the bottom. We owe them accountability and responsibility as well. So thank you so much for those additions. And I think it flows in.
Can I add something?
Oh yes, please. Yes.
Yeah. From the point of view that the prophetess have raised, I would say that it takes a humble person to want to be accountable to someone. If you lack humility, it will be very difficult for you to want to take corrections or to be seen as a followers. And that is why today, in the world of today, we see so many men and women of God, they arrogate that power so much to themselves that their followers see them as God. You know, whatever they say is final. If any decision is to be taken first, either in their home or anything, they first have to go and see Papa. But who is Papa accountable to? No one. And why? Because of arrogance. Like Jesus Christ said it in the Bible, I think it was in the book of Matthew, if I'm right. He says, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? You know, whoever humbles himself. If you fail to humble yourself, you cannot be a good leader. You cannot, no matter how good you might be in speaking in tongues, in, in doing miracles and all sorts of things, one thing that God looks at is your heart. How humble are you towards him and towards the people around you? So, but in the world of today, God, it's only God that can help us. We all see what is happening in the world. So many men and women of God, they've lost that focus. They've seen themselves as next to God. They don't like, if you are a church member, you can't approach them. You can imagine, you have a pastor that you can't approach. You have a leader that you can't approach, to be able to open your mind to. And that person will see you with an empathy, putting putting himself in the position of what you have come to discuss with them. So I feel that if there is anyone that actually wants to carry his or her cross and genuinely follows Christ, this is not just about preaching the word or writing or going on social media. This is about you and God. If you genuinely want to follow God, you need to humble yourself. You need to humble yourself and try to see that and know that, no, even if you don't have anyone you have been accountable to, within you, you know you are accountable to God, and that whatever you do in this earthly flesh, you will surely give an account of it one day. But if that fear is not there, I'm so sorry, we will just keep going around in circle. So what Brother Joe is trying to let us know today here I think humility is very, very key, is a key thing if you genuinely want to be a follower of Christ. Or if you are an arrogant person, because people will definitely see it in you. Your church member will see it in you. You might not be able to talk. You might not be able to say it. But when they leave, they will say, oh, don't mind that mama. She's too full of herself. So may the Lord help us, and may God himself help us to be able to be a good leader as we are striving to lead the flocks of Christ. May God himself help us to be a humble servant, to serve with all humility. That is what I want to add to it.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much for that addition, Pastor.
Yeah.
We are living in a do not judge me kind of generation. In a do not judge me. It's only between me and God. Do not judge me.
You need to be corrected. You need to be corrected.
It's only between me and God. And so never is just between you and God, and there is no authority that you are accountable to. There is no individual, there is no personality that you can be accountable to.
Yes, not good.
You know who I am.
Yeah. So in fact, if there are any pastors here, you know, if you are not accountable to anybody, that's not good. There are organizations now where you can be part of. We are part of the Apostolic Pastoral Congress, headed by Archbishop Doye Agama. So if I'm doing anything that is not right here and it goes there, I can be called to order. If I start asking people to drink paraffin, I'll be called to order. So you need to find leadership that you can associate with. It does not have to be an organization, even if it is, you know, somebody who you respect, a mentor or someone like that. You know, you can't just be a solitary soldier, no.
If Jesus himself could,
I think that's
yes,
very profound. It ties in. I think there was a module on the last course, and there was a quotation from a theologian who says that this idea of Christianity in isolation is a contradiction to the ideology. There's no such thing as a Christianity that says, don't judge me. You are called to a body. And man of God, from your presentation so far, I just caught, I thought this was profound when you pointed out the dichotomous relationship between serving and leading. So when you said leaders serve and servants lead. So I think that last part is often negated as well. We often think, okay, this role is for the leaders. Maybe you don't have a title, maybe you don't operate in an office yet, but you are still called to lead, even as a servant.
Yes.
I thought that was powerful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Doc. Thank you so much. If Jesus could submit himself under John's baptism, surely he's God. He can bypass that. We can sort it out. He's God. But if he can submit himself under that, he's definitely portraying a very powerful principle of servant leadership.
Yeah.
Right, on to law number 4. Law number 4. Now, law number 4 takes a bit of a twist. Because law number 4 acknowledges that even though my obsession is with the mission, the mission actually encapsulates real people. And so this is the law of serving others. This is the law of serving others. As a servant leader, I have a responsibility to serve other people because the mission encapsulates individuals. Now, this might sound a bit, now when we say serving God, right? When we talk about serving God, I want to serve God. Now, God is a spirit. God is how is it that you're going to serve him? How? Are you actually going to relate with him physically? How is that going to be possible? Because God is a spirit. God
and
is
not a needy spirit at that.
Paul, the Bible says, on his way, he has gotten the papers for Damascus.
Yeah.
He's on his way with his team to Damascus. He's persecuting the church. And he had an encounter with Jesus Christ. This is the risen Christ now, not the other Christ. He encounters Christ in glory. And he asks, "Who are you, Lord?" And Jesus said, "Why are you persecuting me?" Well, that's a bit confusing because I did not persecute you.
I've not met you.
How have I don't even know who you are. How have I persecuted you? It is not possible. And so Jesus says, "You are persecuting me," referring to his body, the body of Christ.
Amen.
And so the apostle, this is Saul, he is persecuting real people, real individuals in real cities, but by so doing, he's persecuting Christ. Christ himself says on the last day that many will come to me and they will say, "Lord, Lord, have we not done this in your name?" And he will say, "I never knew you." They will say, "Lord, Lord." The implication of that double reference and double imploring is that these are very sincere people.
Yeah.
These are people that are actually crying out to say, "Lord, Lord," but where did we see you hungry? Where did we see you naked? Where did we see you struggling? Where? Where? And Jesus says, actually, I don't know you, you workers of iniquity. And so he says, because you did not do it to those people that you bypassed, you did not do it to me. As if Jesus was disguised in those particular individuals. The Apostle Paul is having a farewell with the elders in the church in Ephesus, in the book of Acts chapter, is it chapter number 20? And he is charging them to say, now you have to take care, you have to take care of these sheep that God has made you overseers. And he bought these people with his own blood. And so a servant leader meets the needs of the people. It is not possible to move in servant leadership and ignore people. It is not possible. It is not possible. Jesus himself on that, is it John chapter 13, verse 4 to 11? Jesus on the Passover meal. Much is talked about the actual meal, but we don't talk much about him taking the towel and the wash basin and wash the feet. But we talk about but not the washing of the feet, because it does not fit very well. It is not a good preaching point, and not only it is not a good practical and living point, because, well, Jesus is the leader here. How come he's now washing? I thought it's meant to be the other way. The disciples are meant to minister to Jesus in washing his feet, washing everything. But Jesus is the one who is washing. He's the one who is washing. And so serving other people is a critical part in the servant leader. We cannot afford to ignore people. We cannot afford to bypass people. We cannot afford to step on people. We cannot afford to berate and look down on people.
Yeah.
Because that is the very reason people are at the center of the mission that we claim to be serving.
Yes.
And so it is not possible to treat people with a backhand and at the same time claim I'm serving the Lord.
Yeah.
The Lord that we claim to be serving is going to deny us at the last day because he's saying, I never knew you. I never related with you. And so if we are so caught up with the ritual, with the spirituality, with perhaps religion, and we forget to minister to the needs of the people, then we've moved away from the servant leadership that Christ himself personified. And so people, meeting the needs of the people becomes critical to a servant leader. Luke chapter 22, the people are discussing verse 20, 21, 23, 24. There's a discussion there, which is a common topic in many ministerial circles. And the topic is always, well, who is the greatest? Who is more powerful? Who is more influential? Who is more this? Who is more that? These are the disciples talking. Well, because there is a natural competitive element. There is a natural competitive element. I remember at one time I was coming from a particular function with my pastor in a certain place, and I heard him over the phone giving a report of what had happened from where we were coming from, and there was a lot of exaggeration in what he was saying. Like a lot of exaggeration in what he was saying. Because of this need and this pressure to really outdo everybody else in terms of outlook. But the basin of water and the towel, perhaps this is time to get those materials out of the cupboard and make great use of them now, and actually start ministering to the needs of the people and imprint it upon our minds that if we are going to be servant leaders, our tools of the trade cannot just be the Bible, but it has to be the towel and the basin as well. The towel and the basin as well. That is serving others, meeting real physical and real spiritual needs. Real physical and real spiritual needs. And not just the big issues, even the very small little tasks, the very tiny things that we might overlook. And so instead of delegating, I mean, maybe if I was Jesus at that time, I would ask who was the youngest, maybe John. I would say, hey, John, wash everybody's feet. I'm delegating. This is delegation. I'm using a leadership principle in the world. Then I'm delegating. I'll say, John, wash everybody's feet. But no, Jesus decides to do the menial task himself. And so one of the cancers that is attacked Christian leadership is that they no longer want to do the menial task. They no longer want to do the small bits. They don't want to be in the kitchen anymore.
They don't even want to hold their Bible.
Yes, yes, they can't hold it.
I'm a bearer, God will hold my Bible.
I'm a bearer, there we go.
Wow.
Not just I'm a
Yes,
bearer, but we
I'm
can't get
a
to you,
bearer,
man
yes.
of God. You have
You
a train of protocol. We can't get to you as well.
you have touched on a very powerful illustration, because now what's playing in my mind is looking at Christ washing the feet of these disciples. And I'm just thinking, now these disciples didn't have shoes as we know them today. And I'm just imagining the state of their feet. I'm telling you. And here is God himself
Washing.
humbling himself, touching, holding those legs. I mean, that is really, really powerful when you look at it and you think, this was something despicable, really worthy to be despised. And yet he says, I will do it. And yet we cannot. Thank you very much for bringing that up.
Absolutely, building in from what you've just said. Feet of different states, of different sizes.
Oh, in those sandals.
One of the key things is that even Judas' feet was
calloused. Oh, yes.
So are we prepared to wash the feet of those who may or will betray us? Are we postured with the spirit of servanthood that we can wash even the feet of those that despise us, or those that are skimming behind us, or those that are perhaps despising us, or have negative plans about us? Because Judas' feet were washed.
Yeah, Judas' feet were washed.
So,
and Jesus knew.
and Jesus,
that's
if I was Jesus, perhaps I would have broken Judas' toe washing the feet. But he washed
all of them.
The feet of those who will betray you, the feet of those who can potentially do you harm, the feet of those who look down upon you. Can we wash their feet? Can we meet their needs? Can we also clean them up? Can we minister to them that perhaps do not think very much of us? Are we able to do that? And this is servant leadership. Law number 5. I'm conscious of our time now. Law number 5. And this is the last one. This is the last one. This is the law of teamwork. This is the law of teamwork for the servant leader. And this teamwork is not just teamwork as in committee, gathering people together. But Jesus, this is teamwork of sharing responsibility and authority. Responsibility and authority. Acts chapter 6, there is a very sad scenario there because things are not well in the ministry of tables. Some women are feeling shortchanged. And people are complaining there's an uproar in the ministry, in the church. And the apostles then said, Let us find men who are full of the Holy Ghost. And let us set them over these particular issues, and let us move to the ministry of the word, the ministry of prayer. Now, there is a shared responsibility and a shared authority. How can we highlight this? If I give you an instruction, if I say to you, can you go and buy me some groceries? I give you the list. And then I also tell you that do not make any decision in that shop unless you consult. I have given you the responsibility, but I've not given you the authority. So you have to consult back to me at every point, because yes, the responsibility you have, but the authority you do not have. You have to call me and say, well, there's 3 kinds of bread here. There's a harvest, there's this, there's that. Which one can I? And then I say this one. And so the apostles gave both responsibility and authority. And so they trusted that, okay, let them take care of this thing. Let them take care of it fully. The ministry of tables. And so the disciples themselves, the apostles, they got it from Jesus Christ, because Jesus Christ himself said, I give you authority. I'm entrusting upon you. The thing that I was doing, you go ahead and do the same. You go ahead. My authority, that is where we find in the name of Jesus. We keep saying in the name of Jesus. This is delegated authority. We are operating in his stead. And so 7 leadership, I'm able to cultivate or replicate myself and allow you as part of the team to do exactly the same. You are sold on to the mission. You've submitted under this vision. I have equipped you. Well, not only will I give you responsibility, I will give you the authority. This is a law of teamwork, where we are pairing responsibility with authority. This is the kind of teamwork that a leader does. Because the truth of the matter is, yes, we have been entrusted with a mission. We cannot complete that mission on our own. Be very careful of leaders that say, I work very well by myself. I'm telling you, you have to mark those kind of leaders. I work very well by myself. I'm a lone ranger. I do well, just me. In God's divine wisdom, this is the wisdom of God, that the way he has created the ministry, it is in so much that you are going to need me and I'm going to need you.
Yeah.
It is not possible that God has invested everything in you. It is not possible.
No, it's not.
God has created, because for this to be a body, God has created some things that I cannot meet, but you can meet, and this one can meet.
Body of Christ.
And so no one is self-sufficient. No one is all-sufficient by themselves. And so it takes humility again. Say, you know what? We need each other. We are connected by need. Without need, we can't connect. And so our deficiencies actually connect, because I can do something, you can do something, you can do something. And so our mission cannot be completed by one individual. And a 7 leader understands the power and the law of teamwork, of coming together as a team and actually entrusting things one to another and actually replicating ourselves. A 7 leader replicates themselves within that team, and recognizes the giftings of others, the callings of others, the wisdom of others, the contribution of others, because they are not the ultimate. They are not infallible. They recognize their deficiencies, they recognize their weakness. And so they understand that, you know what, I need you. Because the mission is beyond me. This is not something personal. The mission is actually bigger than me. And so I'm going to need you. And this is the law of teamwork. The law of teamwork. And so shared responsibility, shared authority. Jesus himself, he just didn't come and say, oh, I'm going to die and then I'm going to go back to heaven and I'll see who will trust me. No, he entrusted this mission upon these 12. And these 12 also entrusted upon others. They entrusted upon others. And so this is not a one-man show. This is not a one-man show. We replicate others and we work with others. And in so doing, we use the power of modeling in teamwork. 7 leaders use the power of modeling. The Apostle Paul, many times, he's just saying to the Corinthians, he's saying, imitate me as I imitate Christ. He says at one point, follow my example as I am following the example of Christ. At one point, Philippians chapter 3, join together in following my example, brothers and sisters. Philippians 4:19, whatever you have learned and received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice. 1 Thessalonians chapter 1, verse 5-6, become imitators of us. 2 Thessalonians 3, for you yourself ought to know that you have to follow our example. Oh, hold on. It seems as if he's directing people to himself. This is the power of modeling because he himself is following Christ. He himself has patterned himself after Christ. And he's saying, join together in following. Come on, look at what I'm doing. Look at what I'm teaching. I'm not just saying things. This is what he's saying. He's not just telling people what to do. He's showing them by example. And this is the power of modeling within the team. And so this is the 5th law, and we have sort of finished. We will see much greater detail within the notes and the material that we are going to receive. But I would like to end on 2 Kings chapter 3, verse 11 as a concluding point. 2 Kings chapter 3, verse 11. If you can find it, just paste it on the message board. 2 Kings chapter 3, verse 11. It says, I'm just going to find it. It says, but Jehoshaphat said, is there here not a prophet of the Lord, that we may inquire of the Lord by him? Now, these are guys who want to go into battle. They will need direction. And he's asking, is there not a prophet of the Lord, that we may inquire? He's looking for a prophet to give divine guidance and divine direction, that we may inquire of the Lord by him. And one of the king of Israel's servants answered and said, here is Elisha, the son of Shaphat, who poured water on the hands of Elijah. I want you to take note on the identification of Elisha. They are looking for a prophet. But the servant of the king says, here is Elisha. And how does he identify Elisha? He poured water on the hands of Elijah. The thing that Elisha was known for was pouring pouring water on the hands of Elijah.
Yeah.
This is servanthood personified. Now, I don't know much about this, but probably Dr. Brian can help me here. Now, Elisha was pouring water on the hands of Elijah. And now, in one day, now this is not just pouring water when somebody wants to eat. This is pouring of water even ceremonially. This is pouring of water also in cleansing. So in one day, we are not talking of pouring water just maybe twice. No, it could be many, many times he would pour water. And he is known for serving. They are looking for a prophet. But this is a man who is being identified by his service to the prophet of God. And he himself is now a prophet. And he used to pour water on the hands of Elisha. And so my admonition to the leaders here present is that let's get our towels and our washing basins out, and let's make them the main tools of our trade. Let those complement the other tools, but let's take them out from where we have laid them. Let's take those basins out. Let's take those washing towels out, and let's get to work. I think we can finish on this note, but any contributions, please, they're welcome. I've got a few, I'll send these to Dr. Brian, actually. I've got a few texts, a few books that I just want to throw to the class for some cursory reading. But yes, if there are any contributions, I think I will just tip over this time to prophetess, please.
Wow, thank you very much, Mr. Katsande. Thank you very much for that powerful teaching. I believe that we have learned something. If there is anyone with a burning question or comment, just 1 minute, we can give that, and then we can just pray and close.
Whilst there's somebody with a question, please formulate your question. My recommended books, if you want to read around this subject, just to develop yourself further. Of course, we'll send the material and all the other bits, but for wider reading, if you can look, if you can read around Simon Sinek books on leadership. One particular book called, I believe it's Leaders Eat Last. Leaders Eat Last. And any of his, I think he's got about 4 books, you can just have a look around. But I will sort of give you about 7 or 8 books as well. I will forward them shortly. And so let's do some wider reading. I will forward the 5 levels of leadership. I will forward the 15 invaluable laws of growth. I will forward the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. I will forward a book by Apostle John Eckhart, A Shift in Leadership. Also, The Spirit of Leadership, Dr. Miles Monroe, The Purpose-Driven Life, and most importantly, The Purpose-Driven Church. Yeah. Now, you skim all these other books, but pay particular attention to The Purpose-Driven Church if you can. Sort of give yourself a bit of time to go through that one if you can. So thank you very much. I'll hand over back to any questions and contributions.
Okay, thank you so much. So I think we are blessed. Are we blessed? You are allowed to, I will just stop the recording.